So I used to be in a long distance relationship. My girlfriend, Danielle, lived in the Tenderloin, and I lived in the Outer Sunset. I know, I know. I actually remember the first time I told Danielle that I lived all the way out at 43rd Avenue in Noriega, and she's like, I didn't even know the avenues went up that high. And we used to joke that I actually lived on a little boat in the ocean. So the way that we would get to and from each other's house during this long distance relationship, and don't worry, we did move in together, and now I get to enjoy the 38 Geary. But to get from the Sunset to the TL and back was taking the 7-8 Noriega, which remains my favorite bus line. Can you hear it for the 7? So it was one of these mornings as leaving her house in TL and going back home to the Sunset. And I remember exactly, it was December 14th, 2020. Peak pandemic. I was still riding Muni really regularly. And it was a gorgeous morning in the Tenderloin. One of those like really sunny mornings where you like feel really good. I knew that when I finally got off the bus in the Outer Sunset, it was going to be cold and gray as fuck. But I was, for this moment, going to enjoy this wonderful sunshine. And what I love about Tenderloin mornings is, like, it's always bustling. You know, there's, like, I was walking down Jones and I saw, like, older Asian folks, like, doing Tai Chi at Bodecker. There's, like, delivery trucks doing deliveries at corner stores. And it's, like, busy. It feels good. It feels like the city, you know? So I'm walking down Jones, and I hang a right on Market and get on the bus at Market and 7th. And the 7 arrives. It's a bendy boy, my favorite. And I get on. And the moment I get on, I know something's not right. And so back in Buffalo, I actually started a youth community center. And, like, I have pretty good intuition when shit's about to go down. And I knew the moment I got on that some shit was about to go down. And I was right. I look, I get on at the farthest most door and look all the way to the front of the bus. And right next to the bus driver, there's this, like, sort of, like, intimidating, like, bigger white dude who's, like, staring down a much smaller framed black woman. And they're having some sort of fight. And this guy is being, like, super pushy and gets to a point where he actually, like, shoves and pushes this black woman out of his way to, like, get past her. And that's when all hell breaks loose. She, like, starts swinging, and he starts pushing and shoving and punching. And I run from the back of the bus through the little, like, bendy boy accordion thing. And suddenly I'm, like, in between them. I'm, like, holding the back, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And, like, she's shoving and he's punching and everything is, like, it's crazy. And people are yelling. And at some point, the bus stops. And suddenly, I think this whole thing lasts, like, a couple minutes. And suddenly, cops are on here, are on the 7. And they're breaking this up. And I'm, like, dazed. I'm like, what just happened? Did this just happen? And all I remember, really, is the white guy just gets to, like, leave the bus. Well, I remember the black woman immediately gets put in handcuffs the moment she steps off that bus, and she gets, like, escorted into some cop car. And so I'm standing on, like, the transit boarding island. The bus went, like, all of one stop a Market, and I'm just like, do I stay here? What just happened? I'm, like, a little dazed. I'm like, should I talk to anyone? Clearly, no one had any interest in talking to me. So I was like, well, I just want to go home. So this was still a pandemic when it was the end buses running. So I just stepped from the center running bus lane to the outer lanes, get on an end bus, go home. And for the next few hours, next few days, I'm just like, what happened? Did that actually happen? Was there actually a fight on Muni? Like, why did that happen? What even happened? So I think many of you may know, or some of you have gone through this process, that you can actually get footage of what happens on Muni. You go through the SFMTA Public Records Request portal, and if you have some good reason, you had, like, I don't know, your bag stolen or something happened, you can actually request and get that footage. So I go through that request process. I'm like, on this date, at this time, on this bus, this specific stop, you're going to see 2 people fighting on Muni, and then you're going to see this person in a bright yellow raincoat, that's me, rush and, like, get in between them. And so finally, about 10 days after I submitted this request, I did also follow up with SFPD and find out that fortunately no charges were filed that, matched this description. So fortunately, nothing ended up happening of this whole incident. But anyway, finally on Christmas Eve, the person at SFMT gets back to me and is like, okay, I found out I can in fact actually release this video to you. Is this your address? I was like, yes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I am finally going to figure out what the fuck happened. So a couple weeks later, I finally get this package in the mail. I'm like psyched. I'm like opening this up. I pull it out and it is a fucking DVD. Who has a DVD player? So, secret, I'm actually a big gaming nerd and I actually build my own computers. And no, in the year 2020, did I actually think about building a computer with a DVD player. But of course, thank you, Danielle. She has a DVD player, anachronistic. So I schlepped myself across the 7, across the city, get the DVD player, get back home. Finally, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can actually watch this. And if you've done this before, I'm sure some of you out there have actually done a public records request to get this footage or to get like Muni footage. It actually comes with like a special program where you can click through all the different camera angles. You can see, for me, I can actually see the whole run from when the 7 actually started the Transbay Terminal, turns onto Market. And finally, I get to the point where the bus is picking me up and I've got my bright yellow raincoat and the backwards Bills hat. And I realize that the man, the white dude, and the black woman were actually fighting even before I got on the bus. And everything was as I remembered. There was a moment where the guy just tries to push past her. And the moment that he uses physical force to get this woman out of his way is when she swings. And this guy goes like full out hockey fight. And if you don't know ice hockey fight, it's when you like hold on to the other person's jersey so you can like land your punches. And this guy is punching her and like pushing and shoving, and it's total chaos. And there's this one moment where he shoves so hard that the woman actually ends up on those that bench of seats where they like flip up for the wheelchair space. I know you all ride Muni, so you know what I'm talking about. And she's actually like pushed and lying on her back in this like prone, very like unsafe position and trying to kick to get this like super, super aggressive man out of her face, who's like actually holding, like using his hands to hold her legs down. And this whole time I'm literally physically between them. And there's this like one moment where I've got like my forearm like locked up into his neck to stop him from attacking this woman who's like helpless, defenseless, and like did not deserve to be in this situation. I do wonder what would happen if, I didn't run in between them. And so you actually see the Muni operator at some point trying to intervene, realize like, fuck that shit, I can't intervene. Had stopped the bus, gets off the bus, calls the cops, and that's when the cops come. And this whole thing lasts like all of maybe 90 seconds. It's a completely chaotic scene, and you can hear people yelling because it actually collects the audio recording as well. And I just heard a couple of them. There's one person who was like, the fuck is wrong with you guys? And then there's another person who was like, hey, you just got the cops called on you. And then my favorite is this dude who's just like, damn, just trying to go to work and shit. Because like, who hasn't been in that situation, right? And it's crazy. And then, I see like when the cops get on, the fight breaks up, and the guy just like walks away being like he didn't do anything. I'm like, fuck you started this. You started this. And just seeing the whole thing was really surreal. I remember finally showing Danielle what happened. And first she was like, stop clicking through everything. I was just trying to show all the scenes. And she's like, just stay on one camera. And the second thing she was like, dang, you're hot. And then the third thing she says is, you're fucking crazy. What if one of them had a weapon or something? And looking back, like, yeah, it was sort of crazy. But here's the thing. I love public transit. And I know I'm in a room full of people who love public transit too. Like, I love public transit so much that I decided to profess my love by being stupid and running for office so I could really, really prove to y'all how much I love public transit. I love being the BART board now, but that's sort of crazy in its own way. And one of the reasons I love public transit in the Bay Area is that there's no experience of taking in San Francisco and what San Francisco is, like riding BART, like riding Muni. And like, I don't know if I would understand and get San Francisco if it weren't for all of my Muni and my BART experiences. And Like it's just true. The things that you see, the people's experiences that you experience when you're riding the same bus or train with them, it's so different. And the honestly, like riding public transit might be the most intimate I've ever been with strangers. Just think about it. You're like cramped right next to like someone's bags and shit, or you might be like sniffing someone's like armpits because they're like strap hanging, right? Like you're so intimate with a room full of strangers the moment you get on that bus. It's almost like a family room. It's like the San Francisco family room where you're going to be for this moment when you get on that bus and get off. This is going to be your family for a moment, and we're going to take care of each other. And in looking back on that instant, what keeps running through my mind is, why did this happen? And why did no one do anything? Like, what would have happened if I didn't run there and, like, keep this dude apart from this woman? You know, what would have happened to that black woman? Would anyone have ever believed her? And so here's my thing to you. When you get on Muni, really think of this space as a really sacred space that we all need to keep together. That everyone on that ride, whatever they're bringing on the bus, physically, emotionally, mentally, we've got to take care of each other. Like this was really our family room. So just remember, when you're riding Muni, when you're riding BART, when you're riding public transit, this is our family and we got to be there for each other. Thank you.